everyone, and I am here back at Spring Grove Cemetery in Cincinnati, Ohio. We're going to be checking out some of the famous graves, and this is the 700 subscriber special. So before we get started, I just want to thank you guys so much for 700 subscribers. It means a lot to me, and this is going to be the ultimate Spring Grove Cemetery tour. And as you can see, we're right here at the entrance, chartered in 1845, so when the cemetery was founded. Now, if you haven't already checked it out, back in July I did a video on Spring Grove Cemetery, so if you haven't already checked it out, be sure to click a link in the cards and then come back here and see the full one, because this one is going to blow that one out of the water. So without further ado, let's go! Cemetery, and you got this big, really cool looking place. So here's the sign. I'm not going to read this, but you can check that out. There's some information about the place. Now, this is like a cool building in the front here. Now, we're here at the location of our first stop today, which is the grave of Levi Coffin, who was a famous abolitionist and known as the president of the Underground Railroad. So let's go see his grave. So around here, to get an idea of how big this place is, look at all these graves. Also, if you do some research, this is the third largest cemetery in the United States. The only two that beat this one, I believe, are the Abraham Lincoln National Cemetery in Illinois, and then there's one in New York that's bigger than this. So this is the third largest in the United States. And these trees are probably several hundred years old, considering this cemetery was first founded in the 1840s, because there was a ton of different little cemeteries around here, and they collided into one huge thing because of the cholera epidemic in the late 1840s. In 1849, there was this big, terrible disease called the cholera, which you've probably heard of it before. James Polk actually died of it, the 11th president, and it was terrible in Cincinnati. Hundreds of people died from it. It was so bad they literally lit the streets with fire just to stop the spreading. There's my man right over here. All right, here he is, Levi Coffin. All right, so this grave looks pretty sweet. I like the design on this. It's got some nice marble stuff. As you can see his grave, Levi Coffin died died on the 16th of September, 1877, in his 79th year of his life. A Christian. He was a Christian. I have no idea what this means. The burial site of his wife, Catherine Coffin, who died on May 22nd, 1881, at age 78. Her work well done. Noble benefactors aiding thousands of slaves to freedom. A tribute from the colored people of Cincinnati. So he was born on October 28th, 1798 in Guilford County, North Carolina. And he died on September 16th, 1877 in Cincinnati, Ohio. At one point of his life, he is known as the president of the Underground Railroad. He helped 2,000 slaves escape. Levi Coffin was an amazing man. Abolitionist, this is almost the most abolitionist you can get. He helped over 2,000 slaves escape to freedom. Since he lived right here, despite the fact that he was from North Carolina, which was a slave state, at some point in his life he migrated to Cincinnati. And Cincinnati is right on the border between the Ohio River, Kentucky, and Ohio. And the Ohio River was the last point that slaves had to cross before getting to freedom. And Levi Coffin, oh my God, it's so windy, my hat just today. I didn't say this. But anyways, he helped thousands of slaves escape. I'm assuming he had a house out right on the river. And I guess when slaves were crossing the river from Kentucky into Ohio to be free, he helped them. He aided them, I guess, let them stay at his house or whatnot. But he's a great man right here. Abolitionists are so cool. And he's right up there with Frederick Douglass and Harriet Tubman. Levi Coffin, those are the three main guys you hear about when you hear about the Underground Railroad. And his title was known as the President of the Underground Railroad. So, in the years prior to the Civil War in the 1840s and 50s. Which is really cool. Even after the Compromise of 1850, which was illegal to help slaves out, he didn't care. He still helped them out and freed men. Great guy, right? Alright, the next grave is not a famous grave, but it is a little bonus grave. This is Richard Michael Jones, who is Miss Jones' grandpa. For those of you who don't know who Miss Jones is, she's my academic team teacher, and she teaches math at my high school. And I was talking to her last week about that I'm going to Spring Grove Cemetery this weekend, and she's like, my grandpa's buried there. So I looked over to find a grave, and he's right here. Here's his grave. So you see he served in the Vietnam War and lived from November 16th, 1938 to December 29th, 1996. CPO, U.S. Navy, Vietnam War. So he's in this section right here. It's pretty, because as you see, there's so many different sections in this cemetery. And the other ones over there were kind of like huge stuff. This is the big like veterans section grave. It's really cool. I don't know if this is his wife or not. She told me that her grandma's buried right next to him. This might be her. I think this is her actually, because that doesn't even say Jones. So this is loving wife, mother, and grandmother.
We have a service coming in.
Oh, do you?
They're going to be on this side of the road. You guys can stay here. Okay. But if you could actually park where that truck is.
Okay. We'll just he's touring some graves he wanted to see, so alright. We're done here. Should we go back that way? Go that way. Go that way? Okay. Alright. Alright. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
So Miss Jones, there you go. There's your grandma and grandpa's grave. And we have to get out of the way because service is coming. Off to the next burial. The next grave is of Jesse Root Grant, who is Ulysses S. Grant's father. President Grant, his father. Let's go! So I got the GPS right here, going up to where it's at. The cool thing about Find a Grave is they'll tell you where all these graves are at, especially the famous ones. He's not really marked as a famous grave. He's just he's the father of a president, so he's awesome. Here he is, right here, Jesse Root Grant. This is a cool grave. He's got like a nice teapot at the top. So without this guy, Ulysses S. Grant would not be a thing. Now, he was born on the 23rd of January, 1794, and died on June 29th, 1873, at age 79 years old, 5 months, and 1 day, 0 days. And then Hannah Simpson Grant, which is the wife of Jesse Grant, died on May 11th, 1833, at age 84 years, 5 months, and 18 days. So without her and him, Ulysses S. Grant would not be a thing right now. He's the father. They're the parents of General Grant. He was obviously the 18th president of the United States and one of the major generals in the Civil War. This is a pretty nice grave. I like that pot right there. Really beautiful spot too. There's a quote on there, but I can't see. And then whoever this guy is, Clara. Let me see who that is. I think that might be Grant's. And then Samuel Simpson Grant, born on September 23rd, 1825, and died September 13th, 1861. Orville Grant. I believe these are siblings of Grant's siblings, Ulysses S. Grant's siblings. Another Sanitro, never heard that name before. Sanitro, never heard that name before.
Sanitro, never heard that name before.
U.S. Grant.
General U.S. Grant.
Oh, General. It looked like a C. I'm sorry. Ulysses S. Grant died on. He's not buried here, is he?
No, but it's saying that tribute.
This is a tribute to him. He's not actually buried. He's buried in Manhattan. But he's General U.S. Grant right here. Died on July 23rd, 1885, age 63, 2 months and 26 days. Now, he's a legend. If you guys don't know anything about Grant, you've basically been living under a rock. He was arguably the best general in the Civil War, for the Union Army at least. And he was the 18th president of the United States, serving 2 terms. So yeah, he's a pretty cool guy. Obviously from Ohio, from this area, and Jesse and Hannah Grant. Off to the next grave. Next up is Union Major General Joseph Hooker. So let's go. He's right up here behind this tree. Oh, this is such a nice spot. Look at that. Look at this view. This is nice. Joseph Hooker. Don't even read that. Major General USA. Born November 13th, 1814, and died October 31st, 1879. Okay, before we start talking about Hooker, can we just acknowledge, look how beautiful this view is right here. This looks so cool. It looks so cool in person. Did you guys ever get the chance to come here? Anyways, General Hooker. Now, Civil War Union Major General right here, as you know. You might remember him from history class if you paid attention. He was a native to Massachusetts, so he was born in Hampshire County, Massachusetts, and died in New York. However, he's buried here. We'll see. He was known as Fighting Joe, though he detested the nickname, so he did not like being called that. But that kind of like Teddy Roosevelt. Theodore Roosevelt did not like being called Teddy. It was kind of the same thing with Hooker's nickname. He attended the Hopkins Academy in Massachusetts and graduated from the United States Military Academy at West Point in 1837, 29th in his class. After that, he was commissioned as second lieutenant with the 1st U.S. Artillery and fought in the Seminole Wars in Florida. He then fought as a soldier in the Mexican War under Zachary Taylor and Winfield Scott in the 1840s. He stayed in the military after the Mexican War and resigned in 1853. He resettled in Sonoma County, California. So he was in California in the 1850s. So he was one of the first guys to get out there. I have no idea why he's in here. I'll figure it out. He was a farmer and became an officer in the California militia in 1859. He was unsuccessful in obtaining lieutenant colonel's commission with the United States Army. When the Civil War began, his bid for commission was accepted and appointed as brigadier general in August of 1861 when the Civil War broke out. He served under Major General George McClellan's army at the beginning of the war. For those of you who don't know, McClellan was one of the major, he was basically pretty much the leader of the army at the beginning of the war, and Hooker served under him. And reorganized the Army of the Potomac, so he was basically the leader of the Army of the Potomac under George McClellan. In 1862, in the 2nd Division of the 3rd Corps, with the distinction of the Pensacola Campaign, and earned a promotion to Major General. So he was then in Major General in 1862 after fighting a year under McClellan's army. On September 6th, 1862, after the Second Battle of Bull Run, he was wounded at the Battle of Antietam, and for a brief period, he returned to command of the 5th Corps at the Battle of Fredericksburg. So he was at Fredericksburg, Second Battle of Bull Run, Antietam. He was at a lot of these battles. And Antietam was the one that Lincoln ended up firing McClellan because they got completely destroyed at Antietam. So, and then he replaced McClellan with Ambrose Burnside, which is, he also served under him at the Potomac. He failed to make solid, successful decisions against Confederate General Robert E. Lee's smaller army at Chancellorsville, where his army was consequently routed by Confederate forces. Hooker was furious at the outcome of the engagement and became enraged with defending himself with a heated debate at the headquarters, which resulted in his resignation in 1863, 3 days before the Battle of Gettysburg. So
all right, let's get to where he dies and why he's buried here.
Major guy. All right, apparently.
Let's go around the back and finish talking about it on the back with the panoramic view. Come back here.
I gotta
just read it.
So I don't have to look at
I'm just going to give a tour of this.
I gotta read the rest of this so I get it. He retired from the Army in 1866, and then he went into politics, serving as a congressman in the 1870s. He lived in Ohio as a congressman, and he decided that he wanted to get buried here and live the rest of his life here. However, he died in New York, and Hooker County, Nebraska is named after him. So if you somehow happen to live in Hooker County, Nebraska, which I don't, he is named after him. And since he was such an influential general, he was one of the most important generals that the Union had in the Civil War. He's probably put on this hill for a reason. I think it's right here. He gets this whole hill to himself. I think that's his casket, so he's probably buried right in there, but he's got this little he's got his old American flag. So there's my man Hooker. Really cool guy. He was. All right, next grave. Here's Baldwin again. Same view from months ago. And our next destination's over here. Let me make sure this is...
you serious?
It's the wrong Proctor. Wrong Proctor.
William Procter? What's his name?
His name's William Proctor.
There's no way.
But it's a different guy.
No, it's not. Huh?
It is. It's a different guy. Let me see if this is like his son or
This
something.
giant grave has nothing to do with Procter & Gamble?
This is his son. This is William Proctor Jr. This is his son. And look at this thing, man. I won't get into it right now, but this is the son of the guy we're about to go see. Wrong Proctor. I could have swore that was him, but like I guess the wealth carried down a generation, and they got that grave. Bernard Kroger. Now, but the name Kroger sounds familiar to you. All across the United States, I'm sure, no matter where you live, the man Bernard Kroger founded the Kroger Grocery Store Company. Now, no matter where you live in the United States, you've probably heard of and been to a Kroger grocery store at some point in your life. This is the man who started it all. He was from Cincinnati. He was born on January 24th, 1860. So he's a more recent guy. So here's his story. 5th of 10 children, so he's from a big family. And here's all like the family members around here. And this is him right here, 1860 to 1938. Bernard. Founded the Kroger Grocery Store Company. He had his old company called like the Great Western Tea Company and succeeded despite numerous growing pains and catastrophes. Kroger opened 4 separate locations within 2 years. He renamed the company to Kroger Grocery Store, Kroger Grocery and Baking Company in 1902. Later shortened to Kroger and opened over 1,500 stores by the end of the 1920s. The Kroger Grocery Store Company. Kroger also, he invested in the creation of the Provident Bank, selling his holdings in 1928. Shortly before his Wall Street crash of 1929, during the bank crisis in 1933, he converted $15 million of his savings into cash and displayed it at the bank to demonstrate the financial soundness of the bank, averting the crisis locally. So during the Great Depression, he put out money out because he was one of the wealthiest men live around here. All right, so we're in downtown Cincinnati, and there right there is the Kroger headquarters right there, founded by Senior Kroger in 1902. As we just saw, is Ray Bernard Kroger. That was the big company. Obviously, that was not built in 1902. That was built later, but that's the headquarters of the entire country right there because it was based in Cincinnati. And that's where it is right now. And yeah, so the Kroger Grocery Store, he's the guy who started it all. So if you shop there, well, you wouldn't get your groceries without this guy. Same, that's how we roll. He donated monies to parks, zoos, etc., and died of a heart attack in July 21st, 1938. William Proctor. Now, the guy we just saw earlier was his son. This is the actual guy. He was the co-founder of the P&G company, Procter Gamble. He was born on December 7th, 1801 in England. He's from England, and he went into business in 1818. He was only 17 years old at the time. He was connected with the clothing industry in London in the late 1820s, and in 1827 became acquainted with William Hooper, who urged him to immigrate to the United States. Procter arrived in the United States in 1830 and began to manufacture candles in New York City. He moved west with his first wife, Martha Pete Proctor. She died during their westward journey to Cincinnati. Planning only on staying for a short while before resuming to New York, he decided to stay and spent the remainder of his life there. He married Olivia Norris in 1833 and was convinced by his father-in-law to enter a partnership with his brother-in-law, James Gamble. They established the Procter & Gamble Company in 1837. By 1859, sales reached $1 million, and in the 1880s, the company began to manufacture ivory soaps, and profits grew enormous proportions. His son, William Proctor, succeeded him in the company's president when Proctor died in Cincinnati on April 4th, 1884. Now, P&G, Procter & Gamble, is in this area. And they have so many brands. They own so many brands. I'm just going to tell you right now. I'm going to list some of them off. I got them right here on my phone. We have Iams Cat Food, Braun, Max Factor, Old Spice, Herbal Essence, Downy, Patine Provo, Secret Soap, Some Weird Thing Company, Pringles, Pepsi, Pepto-Bismol, Oral-B, Love's, Crest toothpaste, Tide soap, Switter, Gamble, or Mr. Clean, women's hair stuff, Olay, Scope, Vicks, CoverGirl, Tide, Aussie, Zest, Vicks, more soap. There's so much stuff. So right here above me are the twin towers of the Procter Gamble company right here. Those two. Not sure when they were built. I'll put it right on screen. But there it is. Looks really cool. One of the wealthiest companies in the world. Today, the Procter Gamble company is worth $376 billion. Yes, you heard me. And this guy was co-founder. He's buried right here. In my opinion, I don't mean to be like, spoiled and stuff, but I think his grave should be way bigger than this. His son's grave is so nice because after Procter died, the company his son, William Procter Jr., took it over, and I guess that's when it started to skyrocket. That's why his grave looks so huge. But this is William Procter. This is good old James McLaughlin. Now, right up here. I think this is his grave. It'd be embarrassing if it's not. His grave, it's Merriweather. There it is, it's right here. There he is right here, James McLaughlin. Architect. November 1st, 1834 to March 4th, 1923. Alright, so this guy is a huge architect in the Cincinnati area. A lot of the prominent buildings in downtown Cincinnati he designed, including the Cincinnati Art Museum and most famously the Carew Tower, which the Carew Tower is the ginormous brown building which was built in 1931. However, he actually died 9 years before it was finished. He did design most of it. So we're gonna go check it out right now because it is sweet. Another really historic building down here, that P&C skyscraper right there. It's 493 feet tall. Fun fact, outside of New York City, that was built in 1913. Outside of New York City, that was the tallest building in the world. That thing, yes. It's actually taller than the Great Pyramid. Barely. It was the 5th largest in 1913. The only 4 taller than it were all in New York City. So if you don't count New York City, in 1913, that was the tallest building in the world, right? Obviously, you're seeing it over a screen. I'm seeing it in person. It's a Christmas tower right here. You can see how tall it is. It was built in 1931, obviously designed by McLaughlin. Built in 1931. However, McLaughlin was actually dead by that point, but he still designed it. There's another guy too that designed it, but I don't know his name and I don't know where he's buried. He's not buried in Spring Grove. But that's the building right there. We're gonna go inside. Let's go! Alright, so we're inside the Carew Tower. This is 90 years old, designed by McLaughlin and the other guy. This is cool. Oh man, it's so cold out there. It's ridiculous. So here's some of the designs. Here's some pictures of them. This is right up our alley with the history stuff. I'm trying not to scream because it echoes with all. So here's P&C up here, and then this is them building it. This picture was taken in, she doesn't say, but that's what it looked like while it was being built. And that's when it first opened. See, it looks similar to that. It's all brown and stuff. So here's all the buildings. So there was an original Carew building in the 1870s down here, but then they made a huge skyscraper in 1931. Basically replaced it, I'm assuming. And then here's some of the newspapers. Principal owner redeveloped the Carew complex, Carew Arcade and the tower, and now it's a mall. It used to be a hotel. 554 feet tall. That's pretty tall. That's an old design right there. Dang. So yeah. So we're still in the Carew Tower, and this is the hotel part. Look how fancy this is. This is some sweet stuff. I guess you get served down here. And here's the backdrop down here. This is sweet. Yeah, this looks like 1700s stuff. Pretty cool looking. Check this out. Look at this. This is some fancy stuff. And apparently, several presidents have actually stayed in this hotel over the past few decades. And this is, dang. McLaughlin did a good job designing this. Like, dang, man, this is just jaw-dropping. I never thought this was here. I mean, it just looks like an old brown building outside. When you come inside, it's like, dang. Famous people have stayed here. I grabbed this pamphlet in there. And apparently Winston Churchill, Elvis Presley, Eleanor Roosevelt, Bing Crosby, and John and Jackie Kennedy stayed here at this hotel in the early 1900s. And there's a walking tour, and you got all this stuff. Dude, it's sweet in there. All right, back to Spring Grove. So yeah, that was McLaughlin. He designed that building. And also the Cincinnati Art Museum and some more buildings down there. He was huge. Huge guy. He's pretty cool. The grave of Matthew Lawyer, who was the mayor of Philadelphia from 1801 to 1805. And he's buried right over here. Look at that sweet grave. This is the coolest grave we're seeing today. I'm just saying. It's got such cool design. He's got like a sphinx on top of his grave. Look at that, dude. A sphinx. Matthew Lawyer, born on January 1st, 1755, and died on January 14th, 1831. He was the mayor of Philadelphia from 1801 to 1805. Considered a hero of the American Revolution, he was a commander of the successful privateers Holker and Ariel against the British. In 1803, Mayor Lawyer was one of the founders of the Philadelphia Bank. And he was active in an organization called the Society of Friends, the People, aka New School Democrats, a middle-class movement advocating the market economy and manufacturing. He himself was a sugar refiner. In 1807, Lawyer was part of a committee that protested the British firing of the USS Chesapeake by the British warship Leopard. After settling in Cincinnati later in life, he died there in 1831 and was first interred at the Episcopal Burial Ground. In 1847, the remains of his wife were re-interred in the newly formed Spring Grove Cemetery. So he was buried here before this was even Spring Grove Cemetery. This was the old grave. This was the old cemetery before they collided them to make Spring Grove in the 1840s, like I talked about earlier. He looks so cool. That's cool. Yeah, my man, right there. There we go. And he likes Waluigi, so it's my man. Rest in peace, Mr. Lawyer. This looks good. There's one more grave left, and it's the grave of Adolph Strauch, the guy who designed Spring Grove Cemetery. And he's buried on an island called Strauch Island. And he has his own island is where he's buried. So, let's go! This was not planned to be in the video, but I just wanted to show it up because this grave looks cool. John Hawk. He founded a brewery in Cincinnati. He got his own island to himself. Adolph Strauch designed the cemetery, and he's buried. He designed Spring Grove Cemetery and is buried on this island over here called Strauch Island. He was born in Prussia in 1822 and died on April 25th, 1883 in Cincinnati, Ohio. He moved here and founded the cemetery. He designed the graves, or he didn't really design the graves, but he designed the landscape. Look at all this stuff. There's this little island out here. Okay. Check this out. This is really cool. Look at all this places. Again, third largest cemetery in the U.S.
Look how big the tree is. Oh, jeez.
Who are all these characters? I don't know who those characters are, but we're going this way. Look at this. Light. We're just kind of doing a tour. I don't know these people. So this is a cool grave. It's got the pillars right here. That's sweet. All right, moving on. Here's the bridge right over here. This is sweet. This looks awesome. All right. Look at all these little pine needles. It is freezing cold, by the way. I just wanted to mention that. It is not very warm today. Yeah, this is. But it's not below freezing. The water's liquid. But yeah, we are literally on an island right now. Here's guess his family's buried up here too. Or maybe like his wife and his kids.
Not very fancy.
Not very fancy. They're all Strotches. Otto Strotch. Dang, that guy lived long. Boris Strotch. Dang, they live long too. Holy crap. 1880, 1970. Here he is, right here. This guy who designed the cemetery, Adolf Strotch. All these guys. Oh, that's... Oh, there's Harry Stevenson Jr. Only lived to be 6 years old. Harry Stevenson Jr. Oh, it's freezing cold. All right, let's check out this one. There's this little statue right here. This isn't a grave, it's just a statue. Let me get, this is really nice landscape. They got the view over here at the cemetery. You can see all the graves out there. You got this water. Do not want to go in there because it probably is crazy. So with that, I want to thank you guys for watching. Be sure to comment, like, subscribe. And thank you so much for 700 subscribers. I'll see you guys next time. Goodbye. Wah.